I'm Farhan Dalla, transformational trainer, and welcome to Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast, an invitation to take the journey towards your deepest self. It is my intention to inspire you to connect, move, and meditate. We'll tap in, tune in, and dive in, and together learn and reflect from authentic, real, and transformative conversations. Let's get started. These past few weeks have been a complete roller coaster ride. I've experienced multiple grief waves of various intensities. Today, I'm still in the thick of it and experiencing deep emotions. And I want to use today's podcast to express how I'm feeling as vulnerably as I can. I think this is about my 7th or 8th attempt at recording this, so please bear with me. Today is just one of those days filled with a fluctuating heavy feeling around my chest area. And I feel like my whole body is covered in thick, dark tar. I find myself on the verge of tears, but they seem to be stuck and won't flow. I struggled to get up and out of bed, and after some contemplation, I decided to go to the gym. Mentally, I was checked in and sometimes checked out, but it was enough to get a good workout. I trained legs, and that was pretty ambitious of me, but I challenged myself to my satisfaction, and as I walked out wobbling back to my car, I felt satisfied about my workout. Later, I went for coffee and people watched at the mall. I tried to go for a short walk, but no matter what I did, the discomfort is still here. The heaviness remains. The grief wave continues to rise up through my body, but it doesn't feel like it's making its way out. I haven't tried to avoid any of the discomfort since I got home. Instead, I've surrendered to it. I've just been gentle and nurturing with myself. Ignoring grief has consequences, and my inner wisdom is making me do everything but deny its presence. That would be a losing battle. Some days just suck. Grief waves can appear out of nowhere and with no warning at all. Last week, I was at the Ricky Martin concert, and I was so excited for the show. I had my ticket from over a year ago, but the show got postponed because of COVID and the lockdown. I was also excited to be part of the first concert or major event in Toronto since our lockdown a year and a half ago. At the beginning of the show, Ricky Martin said, "Tonight, I want you to forget all your problems and to dance and sing and enjoy this moment." And then, out of nowhere, I burst into tears. Waves of emotion erupted from my body, soaking my mask with tears. No one saw, and I'm grateful for that. I had my moment and I kept it to myself. There's no way of predicting how long a grief wave will last. And thankfully, this wave was short. Although be it intense, it was short and I was able to enjoy the show as best as I could. The anniversary of Mom's passing is approaching, and the discussions have started in regard to planning her service. A year has nearly passed, and yet everything is still so fresh, raw, and surreal. I feel like it's a never-ending bad dream. Days like today, there seems to be no real lasting relief. I feel like I'm going through the motions, looking at the clock, wondering how much longer do I have before this day ends, hoping that if I make it through, I can put it behind me and get another opportunity to try again tomorrow. And maybe I'll wake up with a renewed sense of a better day. Or maybe it'll be like another heavy day. Either way, I am surrendering to this grief wave head on. As I said, there's no way to predict how long a grief wave will last. Sometimes they are mini waves, and then there are times that seem to linger endlessly. And maybe today isn't about relief, but just being present to what is coming up for me. I really don't know the answer. I'm still trying to figure all this out. I may sound like I'm all over the place, and it's because I am. I discovered and listened to a podcast called Good Morning, a grief podcast. Morning spelt Mourning. This episode was called Grief Tip Tuesday, Navigating Grief Triggers. The podcast is hosted by two lovely women from Australia named Sally and Imogen. They both lost their mothers suddenly. I'd like to give a shout out to these two amazing people who are sharing their experiences to help uplift people like myself who are struggling with grief, giving them tips, tools, resources, and a safe space, just like this one, for us all to share and explore, talk honestly and authentically about our grief journeys. I'll put the link to this episode in the notes section because it helped me tremendously. I highly suggest you check out their podcast and follow them on Instagram, which is where I first learned about them and the amazing work that they do. At the suggestion in the information provided by this podcast, I reached out to someone. I told them how I was feeling, and I'm glad I did. People can't read your mind, and it's so important that if you are in need of help, that you reach out. Just to be heard and witnessed was all I needed. Again, as I've mentioned before in previous podcasts, I'll stress, as I've said, I'm not looking for someone to fix things or for advice. I just want to be able to talk, share, and express what I'm feeling. That is what's called holding space for someone. All I ask and need is your presence. You don't have to worry about saying the right thing or not knowing what to say. I don't need you to say anything. Just listen and be present. But if I ask for your advice, then know it's because I'm ready and willing to receive it. When a grief wave is intense, my emotions are high and I'm not always able to hear and process advice. And this may be different for everyone. My needs are unique as my grief is to me. And yours may be different. I really like this quote that was shared with me. It says, "Some things are not meant to be fixed. They are just needed to be carried." In addition to continuing with my grief counseling, I also have a variety of community of support from family and friends. My aunt called and said, "Hey, I have some samosas for you," and came by and dropped them off a few weeks ago. And another dropped off some soup whenever she makes it for me. There's always soup for me or samosas or some way in which someone is thinking of me. And Those acts of making me soup or samosas during the heavy times really help. The smallest of gestures can make a big difference. My community of support also includes social media friends. I have had incredible support from people whom have reached out offering messages of comfort, poems, uplifting messages, quotes, messages just to check in. People have offered me their phone numbers if I ever need someone to talk to. Some of them are people I've never personally met, but have been following my posts and stories about mom pre and post her transition. I really am touched, super touched by the outpouring of help and support. And my heart is full of gratitude for everyone and every message. Thank you for seeing me. Then I have a community at the gym. After being in the fitness industry now for 31 years, I can tell you that morning people are so consistently dedicated to their workouts. They are there every morning, focused and committed to having a positive day by starting it with their own health and well being. My gym community consists of a couple of members I see just about every morning. They smile, they say hello, and they are kind to me. Our interactions are always brief because everyone wants to get their workout in before they head off to work. But that brief, consistent interaction lifts me up and gives me something to look forward to each morning. Having, like I said, been in the industry for 31 years, I was never a morning person, but I am now. I not only get a workout in, but I also get an opportunity for a connection. And they don't even realize how much they are part of my grief support community. That smile and hello in the mornings gives me some grief relief. I also have a community of support at my Jamaat Khana or mosque. There's people there that check in, call me, and ask how I'm doing. They let me know that I can call them anytime. My community also includes the baristas at my local Starbucks. They know me by my name and always greet me with a smile. They take a moment from serving all these customers and genuinely ask about how my day is going. They too don't even realize that they are part of my grief support community. I'll let you in on a secret. I don't always go there for the coffee. Sometimes it's just so that I can have an interaction with someone who's friendly. I literally have a village of people here for me. I really am blessed. But what I'm also alluding to is that I get lonely. Grief often goes hand in hand with loneliness. There's a feeling of physical separation from our loved ones, and grief can be very isolating. I struggle with loneliness. I know without a doubt I am not alone. As I talked about in the episode titled Meditation and Grief Relief with meditation coach and motivational speaker Farzana Jaffer Jarraj, I have felt the presence of my mom, family members from the other side, my spirit guides, and angels. I know what it's like to feel their love and presence, and I know that that presence is with me always. Yet, there is still this void that I'm feeling, not having mom around physically anymore. And that void feels like a bottomless crater that can never be filled. I miss our interaction, her warmth and gentle touch. I miss just being around her. I know that it's important for me to just sit in this space of loneliness. And maybe it will dissipate even a little bit. Maybe today, maybe not. But I know that I can't fill this void. I can't medicate it or suppress it, not with food or anything else that would give me some form of relief, because there is no relief other than sitting in this space and facing these feelings and being present to it. Anything else wouldn't be healthy. I just have to be with it, stay in it, and I'm doing the best I can. The loss of mom also includes the loss of the identity I knew. I lost the life I knew. I was so identified with being a caregiver and son that when she died, in many ways, so did I. I grieve the life I knew. I grieve the role of son and the role of caregiver. And my biggest question I ask is, now that those roles are gone, who am I now? Mom's transition has had a huge role in my awakening. And by that, I mean my spiritual journey. And my spiritual journey has taken me to a place where I know that I never was those roles. Any role I identified with is not who I am. It's not my truth. And I'm processing all of that as well. And I'll explore this more when I'm ready in a future episode, when I talk about how grief has impacted my awakening. I'm in this place now where I'm restructuring my life, and restructuring begins with also grieving that identity and now finding myself, my true self again. And so these grief waves are quite complex. They are layered with all kinds of losses. I grieve mom, I grieve me, I grieve the life I knew, and I grieve everything I didn't get a chance to grieve for prior to her transition because I was so focused on her needs. I also know that, as I mentioned, I have a community of friends and family for all kinds of support. The physical absence of mom is still quite prevalent and a huge cause of my loneliness. We were together all the time. I loved her companionship despite all the demands of being a caregiver. Her love is unbound, and I felt that in her gentle, sweet voice, her hugs, kisses, and just being the person she was. Restructuring also means a lot of rewiring. Whenever I left mom with her helper or personal support workers, whether it was to get groceries, run errands, or take a few minutes out of the day so that I could get some exercise in for me, I always had anxiety about needing to get back home quickly before her support workers left so she wouldn't be alone. I always had a fixed and limited time that I could be away from mom. I'd have to get back before they left or before she woke up from her afternoon nap. I was wired with an urgency to always need to get home to her. And I still feel that anxiety now. Many times this summer, I was out meeting friends, going to the beach or for walks, and I'd find myself looking at my watch, monitoring the time because I felt the urgency that I had to hurry and get back home. In fact, many times I would leave my friends abruptly and go home. And then I would open the door and I was met with silence and emptiness. And I would stand in the doorway wondering, why did I come home? There's no one here now waiting or needing for me to be home. No one was expecting me. Mom wasn't there waiting for my return. One time, a friend texted me after we spent the afternoon together, and she asked if I was okay because I left quite suddenly. I knew then that this wiring of urgency to get home ran deep, and it would take work to undo it and create a new wiring pattern of behavior. I realized that my nervous system was still fired up and programmed to get home, even though mom wasn't there waiting for my return. Before she transitioned, every time I went out, mom would ask, like any mother, what time can I expect you to be home? And often she would call to confirm I'd be home by a certain time. That was just her being a mom. And now there's no one asking me what time will I be home. If I was ever running late, you can bet I would get a phone call from mom.
Hello, Fran, Daddy, mother. Fran, where are you? You don't answer the phone. Is your car is fixed? How long still is visited? Because you know the weather is so bad to reach home. It's going to be so hard for you because of the weather. Okay, when you come back, please drive safely, slowly. Okay? Okay, Fran, I'm going to sleep now. Yelling mother, bye.
And I grieve that too. I've saved all her voice messages, and sometimes I go back and I listen to them. I miss those calls when I'm running late, though I often wasn't actually late. She would just sometimes forget what time I'd say I'd be home. But that was mom. Grief has many faces. I recently posted a picture from a family event and I received a lot of comments of people saying how happy I looked and they love seeing me happy. That too was grief. Grief has many faces, and maybe in that moment I was happy. But that was just a moment and nothing to be defined as evidence that I'm in a better place. That's the problem with social media. It only allows you to see a snapshot into a person's life. I'm still working through a lot. It just means I was able to experience a moment of happiness. And it was layered with all kinds of emotions, to be honest. But it was just one of many moments and a snapshot of that moment in time. I also posted a video on my Instagram of me crying, a true and honest expression of a deep and intense grief wave. I didn't do it for attention, but because I wasn't afraid to show the world some of my most vulnerable moments. Pain and tears are all a part of the human experience, and I am no exception, even though I'm a coach and a transformational trainer. I see no shame in sharing how I'm feeling. It feels authentic to do so, just as I'm doing here today on this episode. I think true vulnerability requires us to let go of our own self judgment and the fear of the judgment of others, and it makes us real. And like I said in my first episode, I am going to get real about my experience with grief. People commented and said things like, be strong. Some may have seen that video and thought it was a moment of weakness. I saw it as a moment of strength. I wonder sometimes if the pain ever goes away. And I asked this question on my social media pages, and most of the people who have lost a loved one said no. One person wrote me and said, you just get stronger. Someone else said, the pain doesn't go away, it just hurts less often. I must say, I wish I had my mother's resilience, even a percentage of it. I think of the losses she endured in her lifetime and her strength to move forward while continuing to carry with her ache and pain. Her younger brother transitioned at the tender age of 6. Her father transitioned while she was pregnant with my brother. And sadly, my brother transitioned after living only a short life of 5 days. I never met him. I was born about a year later, but every year on the anniversary of his passing, Mom remembered him and sometimes talked about him. Our conversations about him were always brief. In fact, not much was ever said about the people that she lost. Even my dad rarely spoke about the son he lost. I didn't know until now just how much pain she must have been carrying. It wasn't until after she transitioned did I begin to understand her pain. Her resilience is beyond anything I could ever imagine. Mom and I were by my grandmother's side when she took her last breath. This is my mom's mother. That was incredibly traumatic for her. And then there was the transitioning of my father, her partner of nearly 50 years. Every time we drove past the hospital where he passed away, she relived that moment, and it brought back so much pain for her. I remember many times driving past that hospital, and I would hold my mom's hand because I could tell from the look on her face that she was struggling. And yet, her resilience kept getting stronger and stronger, even in her 80s. I was always in awe of her, and more so in her later years. How do I ever become as resilient as my mother? I don't know the answer to that. And I hope that I'll never have to experience loss in the way she had. One thing I do know is that her biggest pillar was her faith in Allah or God. It never wavered. A religious woman her whole life. She leaned on prayer and the rituals associated with being an Ismaili Muslim. She took out her tasbihs or rosaries. She went to Jamaat Khana, our mosque. She believed in Allah, and maybe that's what's gotten her through. And I had my own experience one day that made me realize that Allah was guiding me through this situation, which I refer to as the darkest time of my life. I was in a session with my grief counselor. I was on speakerphone talking with her from a landline. I always place my phone on speaker, freeing my hands so I can type and take notes from each session. And even though I was on a landline, I had my cell phone next to my laptop. And we were discussing how Mom was a major anchor in my life. And my counselor posed the question that perhaps I should consider that maybe I am now the anchor in my life. And what does that look like for me? As I was typing her question, I had an immediate thought that in fact, Allah or God is really my true anchor, and all the other so-called anchors in my life were just temporary and perhaps not my real anchor, because only Allah could be my real and consistent anchor. And just as I thought that, as I was typing her question, my cell phone turned on by itself. Siri on my iPhone turned on and said, "I'm on it." My jaw dropped and my hands froze over the keys of my laptop. My grief counselor said, "Pardon me?" Wondering what was that? Was there another person there? I immediately said, I am going to write down everything that just happened because I never want to forget this moment, and then I'll explain to you what happened. And when I did, she was silent at first. We both paused. Like, what could you possibly say? And then she said, "Was there anything else I'd like to talk about?" And I said, "No, I think this ends today's session." And I ended it early. I said, "I don't need to know anything else. I don't need to talk about anything else." I could tell we were both completely dumbfounded and needed time to sort of digest what had just happened. But one thing is for sure. I know without a doubt that Allah is with me, guiding me, supporting me. That was an incredible sign. And though this grief wave is still making its way out of me, I am sure that Allah is on it. I'm Farhan Dalla. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I hope today's conversation has elevated you in some way and inspired you to connect, move, and meditate. I'd really appreciate your support by following and rating this podcast. Come back soon and join me for another transformative conversation.